In politics, you're either on message or you are losing. Let's get to it. Welcome to On Message, our weekly look at where the battle lines are drawn and who is winning the war of words. This week, looking ahead. Last week, the Deseret News wrote a story outlining a poll in the U.S. Senate race. Now, that wasn't much of a surprise, as we're in the final stretch of a three-way primary race with two challengers trying to wrestle the Republican nomination away from two-term incumbent Senator Mike Lee. That's not what the story was about. Instead, the poll was looking at a still-hypothetical race between each of the three Republican challengers and the man waiting for the winner in the general election, Evan McMullin. Now, this seems both premature and, well, kind of interesting. On one hand, can't we just finish the current election before we dive into the next one? But on the other hand, it is worth considering how each of these potential GOP nominees stacks up against the self-proclaimed Republican independent with Democratic support who won't caucus with either party. Got all that? All right, let's start with the incumbent. The poll shows Senator Mike Lee, the prohibitive favorite to claim the nomination again, by the way, with a 41-37 lead over McMullin, but with 19% still undecided. Now, that's a pretty close race and one that should make the McMullin camp feel optimistic. Now, of course, in theory, the race should get a little bit tighter each step you take away from the convention, where Senator Lee's base rules the day. That group gets diluted in a full Republican primary field, and even more so when you factor in Democrats, independents, and voters who vote Republican when their only other choice is a Democrat, but aren't exactly in love with the arch-conservative wing of the party. How Lee can step a bit more to the center against McMullin, who is either a far-right Democrat or a right-leaning independent, will be one of the keys to that race. Now, if the GOP nominee is Becky Edwards, the poll shows her with a 1-point lead on McMullin, 29-28, but with 37% still up for grabs. And the head-to-head with Isom shows McMullin leading 34-27 with 36% undecided. So the question becomes, does this type of information have any measurable impact on the race at hand? With your ballot sitting there, ready to be filled out, how important is it that the GOP nominee, whoever that may be, wins in November? If you want one of those three to be the eventual winner and not McMullin, Lee may be your guy. Maybe Edwards at this point. But I would add this word of caution. These numbers have a plus or minus of about 3.5%, so technically the Lee race could be essentially a tie. Also, most Utahns aren't thinking at all about the November election in June. There is a lot of time for messaging strategies to play out over the airwaves on your social media feeds and everywhere you look. But at the very least, it does look like the Senate race will be worth watching as the summer gives way to autumn. That's it for this week. More on Message in the next issue of the Utah Political Underground. Make sure you visit our site and sign up for the weekly email update. You can find more On Message videos, in-depth Utah political stories and analysis, plus podcasts, and more at utahpoliticalunderground.com.